I love me a good cryptid. Way better than those 2-bit movies. But when I saw a new indie movie being made about Momo the monster, I knew I had to learn more about it. I have heard about this creature before, because as far as I can tell, it's the only known cryptid closest to my location, which is still 2 states away from me. Momo isn't some Teletubby monster for babies, and it's definitely not a Rugrats villain. It's probably the most common story you'll ever hear all around the globe in many different areas. So today, I'm going to teach you about Momo the Missouri Monster. Now, this information is all based on eyewitness accounts, and overall, this Momo creature was first spotted in the 70s, along about the time huge Bigfoot movies came out. So don't take this all as fact, even though it's the way I put it out there, okay? Momo is simply a play on Missouri and monster, because Missouri's is representative of M-O on the map, and monster has M-O as the first 2 letters, get it? If I named it, it would have been Mo Fuzzy, because who doesn't like a fun name for a horrifyingly grotesque creature, am I right? Just flying bats everywhere, the size of whales just coming down and like eating you, and you call them, oh look, it's the gerbil creatures. Has somebody made a movie about giant gerbils eating people? I'm surprised that's not happened yet. Gerbils are ferocious creatures. Never underestimate the gerbil. Alright, and this story may get confusing, but Momo terrified members of the small town of Louisiana, Missouri. And yes, that is a town in Missouri, or maybe a county, but it was seen more often along the Mississippi and Missouri River. But the very first sighting is enough to send chills down your spine. Are you alone? Checking behind you to make sure you are really alone? Maybe it's underneath you, underneath the ground. Maybe it's above you, on the top of your roof, or wherever you're sitting. It's outside of your scope of vision. It doesn't matter if you turn around or not, you'll never be able to see it. If you look up, it'll descend. If you look down, it'll go up. It'll fly high, and it'll probably go into the ozone because you can see pretty freaking far out there. Anyway, good, because Demo will always be here to protect you. Until the video is over, at least. You know. July 11th, 1972. Just outside of Louisiana, Missouri, in a place called Marzolf Hill, there were 2 boys playing with their doggy on the edge of the woods. These boys were 8 and 5, respectively, and the doggy was not known to be of any age. But it wouldn't matter, because their older sister went to a window to hear why they were screaming. There was a 6 to 7 foot tall creature covered in hair and blood standing next to a tree, near the boys and their dog. The creature had no neck, but a large thicket of hair over its face. It stood like a man, but the blood covering it was not its own nor the boys', but another dead dog under its arms. Soon, everyone else panicked and ran inside, and the parents were called. Their father ran a church and when he got home, he didn't find the monster, but an imprint where it was standing, black hair and blood. The dog then got drastically sick, apparently, of the smell of the beast, its eyes becoming red and vomiting profusely, but it would survive, ultimately. A few minutes or hours later, a neighbor said she heard animal sounds outside her home, but then heard of the news around her neighbor's house. She then talked to a farmer nearby, as country folks do, and found out that his dog went missing the same day. This is all reports and could be true or not, although it is in police reports, so police confirm it to be true so much. The children's father, who will be named Edgar, was having a prayer meeting in his home at July 14th. And then after everyone left, he heard clanging outside, like someone was throwing rocks at a metal reservoir. Then one particular loud clang was heard, and then an animal growling. The growling was getting closer to the house, with his family inside of it. So what do? Like any great horror movie, they go outside and into the car. Oh yeah, that's great. Oh yeah. It's not like there's a closet. Edgar, obviously being the man of the bunch, wanted to go see what it was like. People in my family wanted to go see a tornado, but he drove into the street called Allen Street, where he met over 36 people carrying guns. That's 36. Apparently, the reservoir sounds were so loud that it messed with the entire neighborhood. This is where it gets pretty weird, even from a story point of view. Edgar shouted, "Here it comes!" And the entire crowd ran away. For which I say, why? You had guns, and they're not like flintlock pistols, where it's one shot and then run. You just ran. If it was for dispersing the crowd or what, I'm not sure, but a lot of people said that they heard the cries and screams among gunshots. Of course, the police were called, and they found zip not a nothing. So after that, on the same day, they went exploring around Marzoff Hill. After regrouping, they found an old shed that smelled like a moldy horse. I then have to ask, what does a moldy horse even mean? Maybe I'm too much of a city folk out here in the country bumpkins, but I've never been near horses when they were moldy. I've been around cows and they stink, but I've been around donkeys and they stink. I've been around goats and they smell at least a little nice, but when you get to consider goats are the sign of the devil, you begin to think if cologne is of the devil, and what was it talking about? Never mind. Well, they didn't find anything in this building but a very unpleasant odor. The next 5 days were packed with sightings, and then on July 19th, the conservation officer, who we'll call Gus, and Edgar formed a posse to cover the Marzoff Hill area in a monster hunt. Oh yeah! Except the monster was spotted completely across town during this hunt. Better luck next time. The next day, more people joined in, and they stuck to the same area as such because the monster must come home sometime unless it's got a separate home in Malibu, but I don't think it's got that much of an income. This time, they found signs that it was near, but unable to be seen. The next day, some guy was sitting on his front porch and shined his light on the hairy creature 20 feet from him. The beast went into the other direction, thankfully, else we'd all know more about it today for an entirely different reason. Now, this is just another reason why the news media does a poor job at keeping things under control, because the story got international headlines. And the next day, people were outright driving into the town, roaming the woods to see the beast. And overall wanted to annoy the ever-loving crap out of the townspeople because they were scared for their lives. Safe to say, if someone says, "Monster here!" try not to go there, okay? Due to all of this, Edgar's family refused to go back home and just spent the night at a restaurant like my sad aunt. Later on, something extremely strange happened. And just as August 3rd was on its eve, in the north of town, a couple heard high-pitched screaming in their yard and ran outside with flashlights to see what it was. They found 4 footprints in their garden. The man called his hunting buddy to get a cast of the print, and overall, the print was given to Lawrence Curtis, director of the Oklahoma City Zoo and Botanical Garden. And he said it was the tracks of an unknown primate species. But unfortunately, those tracks in the garden were the only tracks in soft soil, which begs the ulterior question, how can a huge freaking beast that can leave prints in extremely hard dirt not leave prints in soft dirt? Does it have levitation powers or something? Some people believe Bigfoot do. Anyway, that's where our story ends. Why? Because that's literally all that was of Momo the monster. Until it reappeared online telling kids to do horrible things to themselves, but it was all just a hoax, and people laughed as news media ate it all up yet again. News media, You create so much chaos. I love you so. It's just like Satan's baby. You know, that's odd, isn't it? Momo was a very, very real thing to some people, and it just up and vanishes into thin air? I mean, I would too if thousands of strangers started driving their vehicles into my kitchen too. But you also have to consider, why wasn't it seen or heard of earlier? Where did it come from? And where the heck did it go? Did it follow down the Mississippi River, or did it go somewhere else? Did it go up to the north? And while this is an obvious attempt to scare my girlfriend out of her wits, I will say that neither of these can be known. And that's what Momo showed these people of the large state of Louisiana. I mean, a small town of Louisiana. Is that what you don't know watches you always. Night, night, my sunshine. Don't let the smell get to you. It's probably just your farts, but hey, if it's too stinky, there's a devil somewhere. His mane and his name just might be the Missouri Monster. Or Momo.